Hey, it's me, Maggie J. Today with a review of the 8th and final episode of Season 1 of Reservation Dogs called Satvrday. Satvrday spelled with a V, which might be part of the tribal language. If you watch with the captions on, when they say words like
"Hey, Javon,"
and those words are spelled with V's. I have to watch everything on captions because I just can't hear anything. Plus, Hulu has this horrible problem of playing all of their commercials at double whatever the volume of the whatever program it is that you're watching. So I usually have to keep the volume down on Hulu anyway, so I don't blow out my poor TV speakers. But enough about that. Let's talk about this episode. William Knifeman is back, and he's throwing meat pie crusts and pebbles at Bear, trying to wake him up. He says that he's had a vision that told him to check in on this young warrior. Bear lets him know today is the day they're going to California, which is nowhere near what I expected to be on the agenda. They've been arguing about not having enough money this whole time. William asks if he's really ready to go. Like, have you wrapped up all your loose ends? And are you leaving this place better than you found it? Which is a wonderful way of judging if your work is done. Bear interprets this to mean he's got to go fight the bad guy gang. The noises made by this man, William Knifeman, are something else. But we've all got that cousin who does this, right? In the next scene, we're at Willie Jack's house. The camera pans across a wall of photos, and we see a photo that, at first, I thought was of Willie Jack, Leon, and Bear's mother, Rita, which seemed a bit odd. But the camera continues panning, and then seated at the kitchen table is the woman from the photo, who really does look a lot like Rita. But it's not. It's Willie Jack's mother. Fun fact. These two actresses are sisters in real life, so I wonder if Bear and Willie Jack are also cousins in the show, and then would that make Bear also related to Daniel? Or no, not at all. Just because these two characters are IRL sisters does not mean they have to be related on screen, right? Sadly, I don't think we ever learned Willie Jack's mother's name in here, and she really didn't speak much, so the captions did not help me find out what her name is. But it did help me to notice Leon making up his own words to the song on the radio, which just makes me love him all the more. He is the epitome of dad. All we need is a "Hi, hungry, I'm dad," and we're all gonna have to send him Father's Day cards. Willie Jack slips him a gift card to the casino buffet because it's his anniversary. Neither of her parents have remembered this, though. But if this episode is taking place within a few days of Laura's driving test, I can understand why they've forgotten. They've probably got other, less celebratory things on their mind. But they both look really happy about this unexpected surprise, even if it's stolen. We've not exactly seen where Cheese lives or who he lives with, but in the next scene we see him and the blind woman from the clinic episode playing chess. He confesses to her that he's not actually her grandson, and that he'll be leaving for California soon. Probably so she won't be wondering where he is when he stops coming to visit. But she laughs and tells him, of course he's her grandson, even if he's not. Next we stop by Alora's. She's got the car keys in her hand and tells her grandma, thanks for everything, which is a huge red banner. Hello, what are you doing? But the only response she gets is, put gas in it. These scenes are on the opposite sides of the spectrum for grandparent-grandchild relationships, and they both make me cry for different reasons. But it's not all tears in this episode. Despite leaving with the keys, we see all 4 of the dogs walking down the street, where they run into Uncle Brownie, who has borrowed himself a riding lawnmower from the hardware store. He was looking for an axe because his arm is twitching like there's a tornado coming. But with an axe and some tobacco, he can perform a ceremony to make it go away. The dogs think he's full of shit, and no, they don't have an axe, so he speeds away to carry on with his mission. At the abandoned building, they are counting their money and sharing how excited they are to finally be getting out of here. Bear says, I don't know how we did it. And I am also unsure of how they came to this point, but that's going on the list of things that don't make sense that I'm not going to focus on just yet, because this episode is not about how they got here. It's about what happens before they leave. And the first thing that happens before they leave is that Willie Jack decides to stay. I knew she would. They give her the expected angry responses, but she tells them not to act like jerks. They're still friends. Siblings, really. She's just not going. And she gives them her share of the money and says she'll try to come and visit when she can. Bear finally opens up and tells them about the visions he's been having of the spirit William Knifeman. How he's been telling Bear he's got unfinished business, so they've got to fight the Indian Mafia before they can leave town. Allura is not in, but Willie Jack doesn't want to not do what the ancestors are telling them to do, so they're off to have a proper final fight. The details that Bear chooses to share about William are friggin' hilarious, and Willie Jack proves yet again that she is down for anything the group needs her to do, except leaving town. For the first time ever, we cut to the Indian Mafia, hanging out in front of one of their houses. We still only know the names of Jackie and White Steve, but a little bit of searching on the interwebs tells me the names of the other two are Bone Thug Dog and Wheeze. Or maybe Wheezy. But I could not figure out which one was which. If I had to guess, I would think the one with the hat is Bone Thug Dog, because Jackie said he was the one who told her Allura was cool back in the day. And he talks a lot more than the guy with the puffy hair. Anyway, Jackie complains about how bored she is, and that at least back in the city there was always something they could do. I assumed that they meant all of them, but in a scene a little later on, we learn that White Steve is from the res, he did not come here with her, and at least one of these other boys knew Allura back when they were 10, so I'm not sure who Jackie means when she says they. Whatever. The guy in the hat tells her that it's Saturday. She doesn't have a job, she's got nothing to do, so they should get high. Which sounds awfully familiar, Smokey from 1995. And then he pulls a joint out of his hair. Jackie reminds him that she does have a job. And then we're treated to a 2-second shot of White Steve dancing. Thank you, sir. Native communities seem to really gravitate toward and embrace hip-hop culture. And the representation of that within this show is rampant in the best way. They're always listening to hip-hop or wearing hip-hop shirts or making references to hip-hop names. We know who's influencing these kids. Uncle Brownie is still on the hunt for an axe. Mose and Miko don't think an axe is a very effective weapon against a tornado and suggest he use a Hattori Hanzo sword. This is the second time he's been told that a sword would be a better weapon to use than an axe, the first time by the dogs. So perhaps this sword trick is a ceremony much older than those who are raising these kids. I mean, usually these kids know the legends and lore that's being referenced, but here, they, and even Mose and Miko, who are from several high school graduation periods ahead of these young warriors, none of them know what Brownie is talking about. Arguably, neither does Big, so either Brownie is on that meth again, or this is a really, really obscure legend or superstition. Either way, he tells the brothers not to question his magic. He can flatten their tires with just a whistle. And then he whistles. And they quickly pedal away, not wanting to find out if his magic is gonna work. Big enters the pictures here, trying to hawk down the borrowed lawnmower. He tells Brownie that he's got warrants, and he's on a stolen mower. He could totally take him in. But Brownie questions his authority, and then calls him a traitor, so it looks like Uncle might be taking a little trip to the lockup. We quickly shift over to the dogs walking up on the Mafia, and a whole lot of yelling and swearing ensues. Willie Jack is the only one that actually gets any licks in by slapping White Steve under his chin as the group square off. Allura is not saying anything, just looking anxious as fuck. Hat Boy is telling Bear to go get your daddy. Then Cheese screams, "Oh!" And they all pause for a second. There's a tornado coming, he says. And then the yelling resumes. Some dudes across the street are sitting in lawn chairs and literally eating popcorn and laughing their asses off about this scene taking place in front of them. A big chunk of hail falls right in front of Allura. After a pause, more ice balls fall out of the sky, and they all take off running. Every dog for themselves, Cheese says, and refuses to share the garbage can lid he's using to shield himself from the hail. This hailstorm also breaks up the traffic stop involving Big and Brownie. Big's got to get to the church because it's got a basement and a tornado is coming. Brownie again says that if he can find an axe, he can stop it. I don't know why Big is not taking her to the basement with him when he goes, but go on, light horseman. The shelter needs to be opened and manned and whatnot, I'm sure. In the dark of the church basement, they pass around some candles, but then Leon comes in and turns the light on, and the dogs realize they're sitting right next to the Mafia. Do houses in Oklahoma not have their own basements? Or is it better to gather in bigger groups during tornadoes? Because it seems odd that so many people in town would come here if basements were a common thing, like I assume that they would be in Tornado Alley. But that's not really that big a deal. There are just things that happen here in this small room with like 30 people in it that don't make 100% sense to me. The freestyle session with Mose and Miko and White Steve is really cool. I love the part where Willie Jack stands up and tells everyone it's her parents' anniversary and that they're really good parents to everyone who needs them to be. And she's got so much left to learn from them. She's going to spend as much time with them as she can. She is such a good daughter. I completely love this family unit. Willie Jack never actually said she wasn't going to California. She just said she was going to stick around with her parents as long as she could. But then Cheese stands up and announces he is also not going to California, which almost nobody has a reaction to. Probably because they don't know that these kids were planning on going to California, or maybe because they don't know who Cheese is. At the very top of the church area, there is another scene with William Knifeman, who asks Bear if he's any closer to wrapping up his business, then suggests that Bear is focusing on the wrong kind of unfinished business, which even I haven't exactly put my finger on what he should be addressing. So perhaps I'm a bad viewer or a terrible reviewer. I'm just not sure what Bear's ultimate mission is supposed to be here, unless it is simply to take care of your people, which is a never-ending job, so that doesn't seem like a business that can be finished. I'm confused. Somebody help me out here. Bear is a little distracted from what William is actually saying because he's trying to figure out why Alora and Jackie are sitting all by themselves up on the first floor of the church instead of being in the basement with everyone else. And Alora is not being as aggressive towards the mafia as the rest of the dogs, which is just the beginning of the issues here. Alora is obviously not acting like herself. Not only is she hanging out alone with Jackie, their sworn enemy, she's acting like an asshole, calling out Bear and all of her problems with him, and she's not exactly whispering. They're in the church basement with dozens of other people who mostly do not know that they've been stealing shit and selling it and saving money so that they could go to California. And Alora's over here telling Bear she's tired of cleaning up after him, and he's done nearly nothing to get them to this position, and she knows she's going to have to cover for him the whole time because he's such a mooch. Then she says his dad would be proud, which is fucking fighting words in my opinion. But Bear can only get more venomous with what he says to her because it's really poor form to punch a girl in the face in the same room that you already got yelled at for using swear words. It's a bit of an escalation. So he basically tells her his reasons for leaving are more honorable than hers because he's thinking about Daniel and trying to remember what he wanted when he was alive. And she can't think of him being anything but dead, which is a knife to her heart because Bear didn't see Daniel in his last form. She says, "Fuck you, Bear." And she means it. Meanwhile, Uncle Brownie has found an axe and climbed up on top of someone's roof. He's waving his axe around and doing a chant, and soon we'll know if his medicine is strong enough. Of course it is. There has been no damage done to the village at all. Everyone emerges from the shelter and carries on about their day. Alora pushes through her friends and leaves without a word to any of them. They're annoyed by this. She's not really acting like herself, but Bear says it's his fault for saying things that he shouldn't have. He'll apologize to her on the way to California. The three of these guys hug and say goodbye, and then Willie, Jack, and Cheese are left to discuss who's the leader now. At home, Rita pulls into the driveway just before Bear gets home. He's been stressed about her because he couldn't get in touch with her during the tornado event. She says she's going to cook dinner and then clean the clothes off the dining room table, and then they can eat on the good plates. She doesn't notice the bags he's got packed on the porch as she walks by, and I realized she doesn't know he's leaving. And neither does Alora's grandma. But somehow Leon knows about California, and everyone in the church basement now knows about it. So it's weird to me that this is a secret, but not a secret. But in a res town or even a small town like this, there's no way that these two women would not have been made aware of this plan. While Bear is sitting on the curb with his bags waiting for Alora to pick him up, Mose and Miko walk by pushing their bicycles because their tires are flat. Remember when Uncle whistled at them? Yeah, We cut to Alora in her car. She stops and honks, and out comes Jackie with some bags and an instrument case. She tosses her stuff into the back and gets into the passenger seat. As they drive away, Jackie picks up a big jar out of the floorboard, as if to ask, "What the hell?" Alora says it's her Uncle Brownie's weed jar. Jackie comments that he's a weirdo, and luckily they don't have to see him or anyone else in this town again. Because in the big cities, everyone sticks to themselves, and they don't fuck with anyone else. Alora doesn't look too thrilled at this statement, but she's not stopping. Not even to pick up Bear. Uncle Brownie wakes up in a field without any clothes on. His axe disintegrates in his hand, and then William Knife Man calls out to him to let him know the spirit world heard his prayers and had to take something in return, either his clothes or his life. So here they are.
Oh.
And that is the end of the episode. Wow, what an ending. And even more so, wow, what a show. I have not had a clue which direction this show is going in since the beginning. And here at the end, I was not expecting them to go to California so soon. And then who actually left for California? What? I'm not even sure how I feel about this. Like, we knew Alora wasn't going to stay, but to take Jackie, when did they hatch this little plan? Not there at the church, right? Like, they only had an hour or two at the most to discuss this. We never saw Alora text Jackie back, so this is definitely way out of left field. But Alora was not engaging at all during their little standoff in the front yard. And if you pay close attention, Alora was the one holding all of the money when they were counting it at the abandoned building. And when Willie Jack gave them her money, she gave it to Alora. So there's definitely clues that this could have been set up or in the works for a little bit longer than just during the tornado. This can totally fit into the arc of the show. We know that we are not told everything that has happened throughout this series, nor are we given a solid timeline of events. At the salvage yard, we see that it's been 2 days since Jackie texted Alora, yet it's 3 episodes after that happened. So this whole series could have taken place in as little as a week. Also, them leaving was completely a shock. I thought they still needed more money, but then I thought about what Alora said while she was bitching at Bear, and she mentioned she got the driver's license. So perhaps that's what they were actually waiting on, and more money is just always a good thing to have. I have a sneaky suspicion that this whole heated exchange in the basement was staged by Alora to make it easier for her to leave and leave Bear behind. Alora is definitely the most complicated and saddest person in this show. So I'm eager to see how that unfolds in the upcoming season. Will they do flashbacks to California when Alora and or Jackie inevitably make their return to the reservation before the next season starts? Will we get an episode just about them that shows us what leads to them coming home? I don't really have any demands of what happens. I believe in this production team and trust that they will bring us another incredible season. And I will be here watching every single episode. If I can complain about one more thing before we go. I was not pleased with the way Bear thought he was just going to ride on out of town without a word to his mother about going to California, which would have made the trip doomed to begin with because there's no way that Rita's going to let that happen. She's a protective mother. Even if he had some sort of arrangement with his father that he was going to stay with him so that there was at least an actual adult involved, she would double extra not let this happen. And Alora can't guarantee that her grandmother won't report her car as stolen at any given time. So it feels like there's a lot of problems and issues that these kids don't even know could be a thing. These kids are stressing me out, man. Overall, I give this 4 stars because it is a masterful wrap-up of an amazing show that touched my heart and made me cry and laugh and reminded me of when I lived on a reservation as a teenager. It introduced me to customs I've never heard of and showed me that some things are universal in these small, intertwined indigenous communities. I was going to give it 4.5, but I had to take away another half a star for making me look at Uncle Brownie naked for so freaking long. Thank you to the editing companies for pixelation abilities. I know that this is the last episode, but I am working on one more video that is more of a discussion about things outside of just review and recap with some video clips and some memes. And I'll address some of the issues that I brought up during these earlier reviews because I definitely spoke too soon and I still want to address the issues that I had. There will be a whole lot of fangirling, and hopefully it will be full of laughs, which feels like a great way to wrap up what happened here. Despite several episodes dealing with a lot of heavy issues, this is a slice of life series. And these are all issues that plague Indigenous communities, and likely small towns in general. It's not all jokes and IHS wellness events out here. Anyway, I hope you'll like this video and maybe subscribe so you know when I post more videos about the stuff that I watch on TV. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourself, and y'all stay safe out there.